A perfect parent has no kids. Many of us have been there. You know, we see this child acting out and the exasperated parent trying to get control of the situation, and we look and we shake our heads and we think, that was my kid. Well, when I was 16, I went a step further. I had the nerve to tell my dad that I disagreed with how he was disciplining my 6-year-old little brother, Andy, and that I had some ideas as to how he might do it better. This is about 1975. My dad was a great dad, but in every way very old school. He and my mom had 11 kids. I'm 7 out of 11. And by that point, they'd been parenting 23 years. And moreover, in the 1930s, my dad had dropped out of Munger Middle School here on the west side in the 9th grade, hey Munger, to work full-time to support his 3 younger siblings. So to compare my knowledge of parenting at that point to his would have been laughable. But I had something that my dad didn't have. I was 16. And like many 16-year-olds, I knew everything. I just wish I'd written it down. And my dad's response was perfect and wise. He listened. When I was done, he gave me that look. I was like, uh-oh. And then he pointed a crooked finger at me and he said, everything you think I'm doing wrong, when you have children, you do it right. I said, all right. Well, 15 years later, we got our chance. And all I can say is, be careful what you wish for. At that future point, my wife and I had been married for a few years. We had bought a house in northwest Detroit. We had a beautiful 1-year-old son, Sammy, and we were looking into doing foster care or special needs adoption. And we go to this one agency, and they give us this long list of like 200 questions, yes or no. Would you be willing to take a child who has cognitive impairments? Yes. Who's been physically abused? Yes. Who has violent outbursts? Yes, of course, because we were young and loved. We were going to create this stable, loving household. And Sammy, our little one, our 1-year-old, would help with all the little ones, and he would be a shining example for them. So I'm checking yes, 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 yes. And there's 2 things I check no to. I don't know why. They just jumped out at me, and I thought, no, I know my limits. I can't do that. It's too lifelong. It's too much. No, Down syndrome. No, autism. It's too much. So going forward, we had gone the foster care route. We had Sammy. We had Terrell, who's like a couple months younger than Sammy. And we had Michael, who's a year younger than both. And in time, we had adopted Terrell and Mike. And people started asking, have you had him evaluated? He doesn't seem to be developing normally. Of course, I'd get angry because you're telling me one of my sons is not normal. And, because I was living in deep, deep, deep denial and, denying that regression that was happening. And but eventually, I had to accept what others saw and what every evaluation said, that our son, ironically, our oldest son, Sammy, has autism, as well as Tourette's. And I know, I checked no, but, men plan, God laughs. And, sorry. All right. And it was Terrell. Ironically, Terrell was one of the few people who could draw him out, who could get him to interact, who could get him to play. I mean, rudimentary play, but joyful play. So I could never get mad at Terrell throughout their childhood and adolescence because Sammy would get too upset. You're not mad at 12. You're not mad at 12. 12 mad at you. 12 mad at you. So, unfortunately, not everybody in this world shares Terrell's insight and kindness. And granted, this all began 20-plus years ago. And, you'd be out, and 80% of folks were cool. They might look a little sideways at Sammy's hooting and screaming and unusual behaviors, but they just go about their business. But then there's that small percent who just got it and went out of their way to be kind to Sammy and to us. And for that, we're eternally grateful. But then there's that handful. Didn't get it, didn't want to get it, and felt the need to give you their opinion. And there weren't many, but it accumulated over the years. All that boy needs is the back of your hand. Or back in the day, they didn't have this problem because parents could use a belt. Or our dear friend whose friendship ended in large part because of her insistence that, oh, autism, that's just a white people problem. Or the many variations of, that boy should not be allowed in public. Can't you keep him locked up at home? Isn't there a place you can put him? Give him to me for 2 weeks, I'll straighten him out. So if you see a child acting out, maybe even having a total meltdown, and you don't have all the facts, but you feel compelled to say something, maybe you can ask that question my wife Michelle says fits almost any situation, and what I should have said to my dad 40 years ago. Is there anything I can do to help? Yeah.
Eddie Hejka, come on, give him a big round of applause.